Hey, what's going on, everybody? Your boy Blake, Money Blake Weather. Another episode of Loaded Joe's MMA podcast. Usually, again, shout out to all of our sponsors. I'll tag them in here. I don't want to take up our guest's time because got a lot to talk about. And again, I don't want to eat up too much of his time. This guest right here is one of the guys, I obviously everybody knows. I went down to Jackson's MMA last June, met the who's who. I met Holly, Alistair, Diego. This was one of the guys. I'm such a fan, and he was so in the zone and in the moment. And I don't want to say the word intimidating, but because he's a super nice guy, but just intimidating when he's in the ring and telling Alistair what to do, who's a bigger man than him. I don't know, man. I'm happy to have on our next guest. You guys know him, Brandon Six Gun Gibson. Brandon, everybody can see you out there. How's it going, my man? How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk tonight, Blake.
Yeah. Not a problem, man. And I appreciate taking the time. Obviously, one of the busiest coaches in the game. You can throw a rock at the roster and you hit in like 3 or 4 guys that you've coached or that you're showing some technique. So that's fucking awesome, man. Of course, I reached out to you, and shout outs to Mark Aragon for helping get this connected. Because of, I'm a huge fan of technique. I'm a huge fan of analytics. I'm a huge fan of breaking down fights. But I do this. It's not my full-time thing. I got a 40-hour, This is your full-time thing. This is what you do. Yep. Now, there's something going on that affecting your job as a coach. It's the UFC is no longer sending you guys footage. You now have to get it off of UFC Fight Pass. Brandon, everybody's seen the tweets out there, but just how you're an intimidating man again when you're scary and you're in the zone. I can't imagine the UFC. I don't want to be the UFC. But you have be mad at me. How pissed off are you at this, man?
I know it may seem silly to a lot of people. I got a lot of tweets where people were like, "Fight Pass is cool. Why wouldn't you use that?" And just to clarify, we do use Fight Pass. There's a lot of fights I'll go to Fight Pass for. I like to watch corner audio sometimes. I like to hear the strategy and the mindset from some of the other camps and the way they approach their fighters and maybe look for flaws or areas we can exploit through that. But for a long time, the UFC would send us, per the camp's request, tape of upcoming opponents or matchups or even our own fighters' recent fights to break down. And early on, they would send DVDs, and I understand that was expensive and probably labor extensive for them and shipping it out. And then it switched to them just sending zip files. And so I was kind of the one responsible for Jackson Wink. I would request upcoming fights, opponents, or even opponents who were scouting out to make informed decisions for our fighters and to break down tape and, try to give the fans and the viewers their money's worth. We want our fighters to be out there putting on the best show to their capability. And, the way we do that is by studying tape and coming up with good game plans. I was fortunate enough to corner 3 fights that were in the UFC 10 knockouts for 2016. And I'll tell you that didn't happen by luck or coincidence. We put in a lot of time and effort developing game plans and strategies. And, then you get finishes like Landon Venata's finish of Matt Desi. And I'm sure I could have done with just Fight Pass, but I think some of the bigger issues that it brings up, obviously, Zuffa's going through a lot of cuts. They're scaling back since WME took over. A lot of good people at the UFC have lost their jobs, and that's first and foremost most important. Like people that we worked with for a long time, I feel for them. I feel for their families. And my problem is very small in the comparisons to what some of these guys are going through. So first and foremost, my thoughts are with those guys. Guys I worked alongside with for a long time, and they busted their ass. And so I wrote an email to the guy I always write an email to, and I got a response back the next day from someone else and said, "Hey, that person's been laid off. I overtook their job, and I didn't know that making fight tape was one of those requirements and job duties of this position. I checked with my bosses, and they said you need to check out UFC Fight Pass."
What?
Okay. And there's a few issues with UFC Fight Pass. Like I said, I do use it. There's a lot of aspects I like of it, but for example, like if we're trying to scout tape on an upcoming opponent and their fights were on a Fox card, UFC Fight Pass doesn't have that. If I'm trying to scout tape on an upcoming opponent and their last fight was last month or a couple weeks ago, maybe they fight as regularly as Cowboy Cerrone, I'm out of luck. It's not on Fight Pass yet. Fight Pass doesn't break it down per fight. Like, I'd have to go through a 4-hour pay-per-view and try to find the spot, and all this stuff may sound frivolous, but we have a camp of over 60 UFC fighters at Jackson's. It sure was nice when I get those zip files, and we'd be able to really scout and go through them. And on top of that, like, I'm not connected to Wi-Fi all the time. We would put this stuff on our iPads. We'd watch it when we were traveling. I talked to some of the other coaches, like Mark Henry out of Jersey. He's Frankie Edgar's coach, amongst many others.
Right.
And he's a big film guy, and he was kind of frustrated too. I understand the cost cutting and all of that, but I think the bigger issue with all of this, and my biggest frustration, isn't Fight Pass or them not giving us the tape. It's more that this is just another example of the UFC not supporting, I believe, the fighters or the camps. It's really easy for Dana White to come and point his finger at AKA when their team gets an injury. But what do they do to support the teams? They're building some crazy facility in Vegas. That looks cool, but they can't send us tape on our fighter's last opponent.
Right. Yeah, and it's a bit. Right before I got on the line with you, I went to UFC Fight Pass because I was right before I interviewed today. I'm like, I'm gonna do a little bit of research on. I've never broken down tape on UFC Fight Pass, but let me do my part here at least. And so I was on my phone earlier, and I was like, I can pause the fights, but I remember pausing it on my computer, and it puts this UFC image when you pause it over the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no. Like, if I were to go to YouTube and pull the same fight up, which is, I'm not saying to go there to go. I'm not telling anybody to go there, but I'm just saying if you go there and you watch a karate fight or if there's a UFC fight on, whatever, you can pause it and you can see it's a clear screen. That's a fucking inconvenient thing. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know. At the end of the day, we're going to find a way to get through this no matter what. Like, no one's going to stop me from watching tape and preparing my fighters to the best of my ability. I just hope that the UFC, as they continue to cut corners and cut staff and look for those cost savings so they can pay off their investors, I hope they don't save a penny and lose sight of the big picture win. Like, sending tape for McDessie probably costed them a very small amount, but Landon getting a spinning heel kick knockout probably did a lot for the UFC and that pay-per-view and that fight card, and created buzz and created next generation of stars. And then that's it. I believe there's a short-sightedness to it all.
So for I get exactly what you're saying. For the amount of money that the fighters are making for the business, you think they can? Okay, let me pay this guy $16.50 an hour just to put some fights on a zip drive. Let me pay $5 to send it off through FedEx or whatever the hell, and that's $20 in. And you're right, exactly. Even just Landon Venata, like, they had him not only on pay-per-view, but they did that Fox card where they re-put the. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that was a big hit. And not even. I mean, they wouldn't even have to mail me anything. They would just email us a link that we would download, and then I was the one that would put them on disc and share it with the other coaches, and share it with the fighters. So, yeah, I don't know how much it was costing them. Like I said, I get Fight Pass as a tool and a resource and all of that, but you look at NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL teams, and you see the players and the coaches breaking down tape together in their rooms, studying in their rooms, and that's provided through the NFL. And somebody told me, like, well, why don't the camps just go and pay for it if they want it that bad? And it's like, I can't go, and Jackson Wink can't set up videos at a UFC event. Like, we can't do that. You can't film at their event. We work for independent contractors who work for the organization, and at the end of the day, maybe the fighters are the ones that need to ask directly. I'm sure if John Jones or Holly Holm or Cowboy Cerrone called up and said, hey, I need that tape, I would probably get an email with those files again.
Wow. That's heavy right there, man, because you got to bring out the heavy hitters to just make something as just small that could help make some more Landon Venata spinning back kick
Exactly.
knockouts, and stuff like that, man. And I was reading a lot what you were saying today, again, just on the tweets, and it's just like there is a slow footage, but I'm sure it's different. UFC slow, like you can watch it, and but I'm sure even then you can freeze frame by freeze frame. You don't have to click the pause button, and
Oh
then
yeah, sure, for sure.
just a little meticulous, like even for me as somebody, again, I'm not what you do, but I like to make pretend I can break down fights and stuff like that, and I don't like searching. I like to just type in a name and find who I'm looking for. It's like you brought up, like I don't like searching through a pay-per-view and like having to go through Wikipedia and been like, where the hell did they fight on this card? Can I guess? Can I
Hmm.
put the timestamp here and guess? Oh, they're walking out. Like, fuck, I got to take an extra. This takes up extra time when we could just streamline this process.
Yeah, and like you said, there's also a lot of other cool websites, and but I don't want to have to be doing things non-legit. It was just real easy when the company would provide their own employees with what the employees' teams needed. So yeah, it's the whole thing's frustrating. I think it's just a small spectrum into a bigger issue. Um, but we'll make do, and we'll keep making champions and keep making crazy spectacular fights for the fans.
I like it, man. I like the attitude that you have. And yeah, you're right. You're going to be able to do it. We, as people who run podcasts and break down fights and make pretend, we're trying to do exactly what you're doing, man, on a smaller scale. We're all going to have to work around this next barrier, and hopefully this is just a temporary thing. Hopefully it's just they fired that guy, laid him off, and they bring in Joe Smith, who's like, oh yeah, I can, right? We're hoping that, right? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of funny too. I have a Facebook page. This is Brandon Gibson, and on there I had shared a video like through Instagram of maybe it was Cowboy Cerrone's finish of Rick's story, and I've never had an issue on Facebook, and today I got a policy violation from Facebook on my page for sharing that video, and I just kind of thought the timing of it all was a little coincidental. I was like, maybe I ruffled some feathers overnight with those tweets. They got a lot of traffic. One of the most popular tweets I've ever put out. So who knows? But it was like don't be sharing Zuffa LLC owned footage anymore
God.
on your page. And I was like, okay. Okay.
Good to know for the future. Jesus Christ. If you can't do it, who can? Yeah. It's a crazy time, man, that we're living in. Again, I think we all hope it kind of mulls over. We hope this is a transition phase. And again, I'm thinking with the glass half full type mindset, but we have no idea. Maybe by the time I come down there in Albuquerque and we talk in July, things have changed, and we're laughing about this, 5 months down the line, man. But this is a serious thing, and it makes the job a lot harder for coaches like you, man. So, again, I just wanted to thank you for just, I know we're at 15 minutes in here, but I want to thank you for the time for speaking with me. I don't know
of course, man.
if I'm the first one to reach out to you like this, but I'm definitely one of the more entertaining guys that's going to reach out to you like this and try to make it a little lively, but also try to Bill Nye Science Guy, drop some knowledge bombs on you and keep it lively and fun. But this is a serious thing, right?
Yeah, and I am confident at the end of the day we'll work around it however we have to. And onwards and upwards, with Greg and Wink and the rest of our great team at Jackson Wink. We got a lot of big fights coming up. I put in a request for some fight tape. Now we'll just have to find other ways around it. But some that I wish I could announce already. But keep your eyes out. We got some real cool things coming up.
I like it, man. I like it. And one last question before I get you out of here, man. When the UFC sends you maybe the links for the footage, it's not just stuff that's like in Fight Pass. Is it other angles? Is it just everything you can find on Fight Pass, like all the blue corner, red corner stuff?
No, it doesn't have any of that. It was just the plain broadcast, commercials cut out, no walkouts, just like raw clip of the fight, which was really cool. It would have the broadcaster commentary that we'd always mute. You know, we don't want not anything against the broadcasters, but we just don't want any influence on our tape watching sessions, on our film study sessions. So, you know, that was a nice Fight Pass was a nice companion to that. I would go and watch the corner cams and different angles at times like that, but really we would just plug it into a PlayStation, and you see John Jones on that controller, like pause, barely rewind, slow-mo play, barely rewind, slow-mo play. Like watching tape with some of these guys is, you know, one fight could be an hour and a half, breaking it down, pausing, writing notes, rewatching it, bringing different coaches in, rewatching it. But that's what it takes to win at this level. You know, you really got to put together a good comprehensive game plan and backup game plans, and the study session is step one, you know, and then it goes into to pull the train.
Right, man. Right, for sure. Well, Brandon, again, I want to thank you again so much for the time. Hopefully we can have some more conversations, you know, as the fights progress and some get announced. I'd love to have you on the podcast and just talk technique and what you look for and what you train for one of these days, man. We'll arrange another time. But, yeah, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Please, of course, let people know where they can find you all over the interwebs and social medias, and shout out anybody you want to, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, shout out to everybody at Jackson Wink working hard. We got some great up-and-coming coaches, too, that I think should really be highlighted. We got Harry St. Ledger, judo Olympian, Renzo Gracie black belt. He's one of our up-and-coming grappling, wrestling, judo coaches, amazing martial artist. And my homie Frank Lester, he's working on the pads. He's putting together his own flow and building up his own guys, and super cool to see. So I'm very proud of those young coaches coming up as well. And you find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Six Gun Gibson. Check us out.
Love it, man. Love it. Brandon, again, thank you so much for the time, my man. You have a good rest of the night. I'll stay in contact with you, brother, and train safe, brother.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, man. You have a good night.
It.
Peace.
You too, man. Thank you, Blake.